I've had the A05s for over 2 months now. This video is coming really late, but you know, better late than never, I guess. The A05s is supposed to be a budget entry-level smartphone, and I think to the rest of the world it kind of is, because this costs about $140. But because of the horrendous exchange rates here in Nigeria, it doesn't look like a budget phone anymore. When I bought this phone 2 months ago, it was selling for 136,000 naira. And now, the base model is selling for 218,000 naira. Insane. But the thing is, these prices are not final. They could go up, they could go down. Hopefully they go down. But it definitely makes it hard to review this phone because it shouldn't cost this much. You know, it kind of just messes with everything. But anyway, with that to the side, let's talk about the phone now. As you can see, we get the very familiar Samsung look. 3 cameras on the top left and then a flash. We also get a matte textured rear, which does a great job with hiding fingerprints. There's a fingerprint sensor on the side, on the power button. There are 2 mics, one at the top, one at the bottom. There's just 1 speaker, which does okay, and then we have the headphone jack. Build quality and design is pretty fine for a budget phone. The only issue you might have is with the notch at the front and the very thick bezels. These are not deal breakers in my opinion, but then again, when you're spending over 200,000 naira on a smartphone, you kind of want smaller bezels and a hole punch cutout. I also want to mention that this year, Samsung took away basically all accessories on this phone. The A05s is a big phone. It's even taller and bigger than the A04s. The display is now 6.7 inches and the screen resolution now 1080p. The bigger size screen means handling the phone one-handed might become a little bit of a hassle, especially for those with small hands. But it also means when you're watching content or a movie in landscape mode, you get a wider screen. And then also, because of the higher resolution display, you also get a sharp and detailed screen. So you should enjoy watching content on this phone. For those wondering, it's still a PLS LCD display, not AMOLED. But I would say for an LCD display, it looks really good. You could even maybe mistake it for an AMOLED display. It also has a 90Hz refresh rate, just like its predecessor. But interestingly, they do not give you the option to choose the refresh rates, like 60Hz, 90Hz, none of that. In fact, you don't even see it in the settings. For this price point, it's a pretty good display. They could reduce the bezels though. The A05s runs on Android 13, but we still get the core version of One UI 5.1. So in essence, it looks like every other Samsung phone, and also comes with most of the customization options of One UI. But it still lacks some core features, the most noticeable being a native screen recorder. From my understanding, it should be getting 2 to 3 years of major OS updates. I think for this price point, no other phone gives you that. This is definitely one of the major advantages of going with a Samsung budget phone. They thankfully upgraded the chipset in this year's phone. They went from the Exynos 850 to the Snapdragon 680. When you compare them, you clearly see that the 680 is a much better processor, especially with gaming. This is actually the same processor that you'd find on the Redmi Note 13 4G, which is more expensive. And just like with the Note 13, you wouldn't have any issues handling all your basic phone tasks, including gaming. I played Asphalt 9 and didn't face any issues. It didn't overheat, there weren't any lagging issues, it was fine. One thing I was looking out for was the shutter lag that Izzy mentioned in his video. I actually received an update on this phone, I updated it, checked the camera, and for the most part, it's okay. I would say it's not completely gone, there is still a little bit of lag, but I think it's not as bad as before. So hopefully more updates coming in the future completely solve this problem. So performance is okay. I would only add that you want to get as much storage and as much RAM as possible. So the safe spot could be 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage. For the cameras, you get a 50 megapixel camera, and these are the images that the cameras spit out. I would say that as long as you give it sufficient lighting, the main camera does pretty well. The colors and sharpness are very decent, and the images look true to life. The selfies in the beginning suck, but once you turn off the face smoothing, it does produce better results. Again, just make sure you have sufficient lighting. For video, it shoots at 1080p with no stabilization, and I think the video quality is satisfactory, but you just have to use a tripod when filming to avoid wobbles in your footage. I don't know, phones at this price point typically have okay camera quality, and that's what we get with the A05s. One area budget entry-level phones excelling though is with the battery life. The A05s comes with a 5000 mAh battery, which you would definitely struggle to kill in a day with regular use. And then when you do kill the battery, charging it up would take about an hour and a half because the 5S now supports 25 watts fast charging. That's an improvement from its predecessor's 15 watts. Now that's great and all, but if you remember in the beginning we said Samsung is now removing all accessories from the box. So that 25 watts fast charging capability that it has, well, you're going to have to buy a 25 watt charger to get those 25 watt charging speeds. So again, for those in Nigeria, considering this phone is now more expensive than it typically is, having to still buy a charger on top of that, the 5S, it's a really good phone. Like when you look at it compared to the 4S, it's great, okay? It does improve in a lot of areas. The cameras are better, the display is better, the chipset is better, the fast charging capability, it's better. There are just so many good things about this phone, but it's hard to see it as a good deal for the price that it's going for here in Nigeria. But again, this doesn't apply to just the A05s. Like literally every new phone coming out now would have this same problem, but maybe that's the new normal. And then for those not in Nigeria, the A05s, great phone. Like I said before, it has a ton of upgrades from the A04s. But if you're looking at the Samsung lineup, you might be thinking, should I go 5S or should I go A15? Now, that's a video I would be working on and you should expect pretty soon. So you should definitely subscribe so you don't miss that. I think that's it. This is my review of the Galaxy A05s. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you when you see me.